No, it was as far as my mind as we are from China. So,
So again, sometimes it happens like that. God will call you when you least expect it. He'll call you when you least expect it. But again, it's kind of interesting that our paths have kind of run parallel, and that we've never really drifted that far one from another. And as Curtis was saying, he lost his parents at a very young age, and I cannot fathom what that would even be like. And then I actually forgot that you were the youngest of how many?
10.
The youngest of 10. Now, aren't I glad he wasn't here to hear the last part of my sermon, huh? I talked about the baby of the family, the younger one of the family. So just kind of share with us what your thoughts are as far as the importance of parents, and then the importance of fathers, and then how has God kind of filled that gap for you?
I, whenever Mother's Day, Father's Day, when I'm up in my church, or when I do a funeral, if I see one of the older people pass and they've got kids, I tell them how young I was when I lost my mother and father. And so I've tried. I tell people, I say, you ought to really do whatever you can to get along with your mother and father. They may not be may have been hard on us, whatever, because I tell them how blessed they are for those that have gotten to be adults and they've still had their parents or grandparents around. Because I didn't have that. I can't say I thought I had a horrible childhood. Thought we were poor until I met some of the old guys in my church from Mississippi and Arkansas. And when they told me their story, I had to repent. Some of us remember when, if you if the toilet didn't work right, you had to get a bucket of water and pour it in the toilet. Them guys didn't have a toilet. So when they told me their story, I said, I thought I was poor when I came up, but I wasn't poor. One of them guys said they were poor because they couldn't afford the extra OR. So, but I didn't like my childhood as much as I think a kid should, and that's because my mother died, and after my mother died, my father kind of drank a little bit. He was never abusive. Every whooping I got, I
Deserved
earned
it.
I earned it. But my dad didn't drive. But my dad, for those 5 years, my dad found a way, didn't drive, didn't have a car, but found a way to take me and I got a sister a year older than me. He found a way to take us on vacation. He would get somebody else to drive us to Joliet, Illinois to see our cousins, or over to Columbus, Ohio. We had some cousins over there. So he either to get somebody to drive us, or he would take us on the Greyhound bus. That was big back then. And so as I began to look back, I said, my dad did the best that he could with what he had.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was an awesome cook, but my dad didn't take no stuff off of his kids. I got 5 brothers, 4 sisters. I never seen anybody in that hand raise their hand at my dad. I seen them weep and gnash their teeth. Never seen nobody act like they were going to rebel against him. And he wasn't nothing but a janitor at a school. That's all he was. My dad would come home on the weekends sometimes, and he would drink, and he'd go back in his bedroom, and he'd be there. But he would walk to the grocery store and take me with him. And I thought that was big stuff back then. My dad sometimes would play hide and go seek in the house with me and my sister. Just did little things. I didn't appreciate it back a lot back then. We didn't go to ball games and stuff. If I went to see the Indianapolis Indians play, it's because I had a friend who's had a birthday and his dad took us or something. And if I was a part of his group, I'd get to go to something like that. But I didn't do a lot of that. So what that caused me to do as I grew older, and I used to pray, Lord, if you ever allow me to have a family, if you ever allow me to meet a lady, get married, have kids, I said, Lord, I want to be there for them. I want to be there to watch them graduate from high school. I used to walk to school and I'd see them playing sports over at Tabernacle. And I didn't play over it. I didn't have nobody enroll me, didn't have money to do it, whatever it took. So we used to walk over to Tarkington Park and play ball, do stuff like that. But I used to say, Lord, I want to be able to be there for my kids, take them to sports, let them get involved in stuff, watch them graduate high school, watch them get married. That was big stuff in my opinion. And it is, unfortunate that in our day and age that we want to use sex as a toy, but we don't value having a family. I hope everybody understands what we see as families today, women raising children by themselves, women with babies by 2 and 3 guys. That was never God's plan. And what's slowly happening is that's become so prevalent now that we think that's normal. But that's not, that shouldn't be normal. Outside of a woman that has babies by a guy, if that guy's living, he should be there with them babies. Even if they could not get along, and for some reason they have to go their separate ways, he still should be there. There's something that a man, and again, I know this goes against modern day thinking, but there is something that the man brings to the relationship that a woman doesn't bring. Now, women have been forced into action, and they've done. My sister has done a great job with her son, but that guy needs to be there because there's something that a woman brings to those children that a man doesn't bring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he loves them. Yeah, a father can be nurturing, but there's something that woman brings to that relationship that the fella doesn't bring, and God meant for it to be that way. And so this fatherhood thing is really important. I firmly believe that if young boys see their daddies come to Sunday school, they won't think it's a chump thing to do. And they'll want to, if we develop the relationship, like when my boys were babies, when we went to church, I was the one that my wife would set their clothes out, I'd wash them up and put their clothes on. So I got real close to my boys so that they would want to go where I went. They wanted to hang around me. And that's the way I wanted it. I wanted to be there to see them because my dad wasn't there for my graduation. My sisters were there. My dad didn't see me graduate college or high school. And this thing of nowadays we want to, these women's liberals, they want a baby, but they don't want the daddy around. I can do this. There are some things we do because we're forced to do them, forced in action. There are some things that we shouldn't have to do. We shouldn't, especially when there's a father there. Now, again, that's assuming the father is willing to step up and meet his responsibilities. And God is going to hold us accountable. He's going to hold all of us accountable for, I tell people this thing, Pastor Shepard mentioned about us coming up, we didn't have preaching on our mind. We were playing saxophones. We were singing in the choir, playing. But what God does, God is slowly moving in your life to move you to where he wants you to be. And so I never thought, when I left Grace, I was doing all that stuff at Grace Church. I said, we had 1,500, 2,000 members, whatever it was.
At least.
And I said, I ain't doing this stuff no more. It's too many people in this church for me to be doing substitute Sunday school teaching, driving the bus, vice president of the choir, treasurer for the young people. I said, it's too many, there ought to be more people doing this stuff.
The harvest is plentiful.
And so I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I said that if I ever leave, and Bill Bland told me, he was our young people's chairman. He said, don't you ever say what you won't do for the Lord. Don't ever say that. Don't ever say that. He said, because God will put you on the spot. And sure enough, I ended up pastoring a church, driving a Sunday school bus, teaching a Sunday school class. And Bill talked one time. He said, remember that time, Curtis, you said you wasn't going to ever do that again? But God is prepping us. And guys, God ain't going to have to call Pastor Shepard to find out, okay, how good were was brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so. He sees you raising the kids he allowed you to have. And he's doing that for a reason, and that helps prep us for things. I have a problem with people say, well, you know, somebody has a kid out of wedlock and they say it was an accident. No, it wasn't. Whenever a male sperm meets a female egg, it's going to produce a baby. That's design. Huh? That's not an accident. It's not an accident. So don't call the kid an accident. People made poor decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the mother and father may have made a poor decision, but the kid is not an accident. That happens every time, you know.
So there's no such thing as an illegitimate kid. They're illegitimate parents.
Yeah.
Illegitimate parents.
And so this fatherhood thing means a lot to me. And you know, he was talking about his dad. I mean, his dad is 80 years old and committed.
We got him on the phone?
And so when I would go over his dad's house, his dad would come home from work sometimes. I'd be sitting at their dinner table. Yeah, I mean, Barbara, did you have another child? I don't know, something you need to tell me. But I mean, I was over there a lot. But Shep didn't complain about that. And, you know, when he would bring those cars home to wash them, we'd sit out there and wash cars and, you know, and play ball and stuff. But, you know, he was there and allowed me to do that. Because there are people in our day and age that think being one man with one woman. My son had this happen. He brought some of his ball playing friends over. He was in junior high, and they looked at a picture of our family, and one of his friends said, "Is that your father?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "No, your real father." And Ethan told him, "Yeah, that's my dad." He said, "No, and Ethan said, "Dad, they act like this was something strange." And I told him, "Ethan, for some people it is, because they've had a baby, and then the mother lets, fools around with whoever she." So this fatherhood thing is important, guys, and God designed it this way. If you follow not only from a father point of view, you understand that in your Bible, the priesthood was progressive. First priest in your Bible was Abraham. He offered sacrifice for himself. In Exodus chapter 2, I'm going to say chapter 2, chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, it was the priesthood for a house. The father offered the sacrifice for the whole house. Later, God called a family out, and he had a priesthood for a nation. And then ultimately, Jesus Christ becomes the high priest, and he's the priest for the church. So the example was said that it should be fathers that should be leading the household in prayer and acting as priests. Abraham offered sacrifices for his family, for his children. That was his job. He was the high priest of the home. But now we don't have high priest for the home. We have, and we're demeaning the role of the father in the relationship. And I'll tell anybody, just because your daughter is 23, 33, or 43. I had a lady one time, she had a daughter living in Grand Rapids, and her daughter was grown. And I told her, don't think that. I tell her, just because your daughter's grown doesn't mean she doesn't need her mother. That's right. That's right. Just because a young man turns 35 doesn't mean he doesn't need his father. Because I'd give my IT to have been able to go back and talk to my dad about things that was going on in my life. And I'm very active. Both my boys are grown, but I call them and I check on them, because that stuff means something to me. I want them to have good memories about their dad.
Amen.
I used to tell people, if they ever, you see them guys grow up and they be on TV, football players, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom." Never "Hi, Dad." And I said, if my kids get up here, they better say hi to Dad. Huh? But guys, this is replete. You can, just because you can impregnate a woman, that doesn't make you a father.
Say that today.
It really doesn't make you a man. It makes you the male of the species. Huh? But it takes a father. It takes a true man, not only to help bring a kid in the world, but to take care of that kid in this world.
And that's the biggest chore, to take care of the kid.
And that's what we And that's, in a lot of our neighborhoods, that's what we're dealing with now, is kids that haven't had fathers. You look at a lot of these shows about gangs and, these Mexican gangs, these black gangs, and why they got in the gang. It gave them a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
They had somebody to look up to. They had somebody that would look out for their back, teaching them all the wrong stuff. But they had that. And so, every child needs to be able to come to their father, have their father there. I used to tell my sons, I'm not your friend, I'm your father. I got a greater responsibility. I said, if you get in an accident, they're not going to call in a car. They ain't going to call one of your friends. Police ain't calling them. And the car you hit, them people don't want to see your friend because they know neither one of y'all got no money and no insurance. They want to see the father or the mother. They want to see the parent.
Yeah.
And so I used to tell my son, I'm your father. I'm not your friend. I got a great responsibility on me. And it's my job to do what I can to give you a head start and get you on the right course so that when you leave my house, you can stay the course. You can go on what we've taught you. And so, guys, this fatherhood thing is big, but people want to play it down. I mean, our world wants to play it down. But guys, we are, we bring something to the table that not everybody, that any old thing can't come to the table.
Okay.
A daughter needs to see a father.
And with that being said, with that being said, I want to introduce now. I wanted to have him here in person, but he has duties as the deacon of Guiding Light Assembly, and so he wasn't able to stay to be with us. He got in the last part of our first service. But it's my father. But not only has he served as my father, but he was the father of many young men. He was the scout master of Troop 563 here in the city of Indianapolis, Boy Scout troop. Definitely made sure that we were at church, and he is my father, not was, but is my father, the father to many, none other than Deacon Charles E. Shepherd, and we do have him on audio, and I want him to share a little bit about his childhood, and we're going to talk a little bit, hopefully, about him being the role that we would love to see more of in the time that we live in. So with no further ado, Charles E. Shepherd. Dad, are you there? Can you hear me? All right. Can you? Hopefully you can hear me. We've got you on audio to talk to the folk and just kind of share with them a little bit about your childhood and about rearing up 3 boys. 4 if you count Curtis.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Well, I'm almost at your front door of your church. If you want to keep talking till I park, I'll be in.
Okay, all right. All right. See, you can count on him. You can count on him. He's got a job to do. He's going to do it. But like Curtis said.
I'll be coming to the front door for shortly.
Okay, he's coming to the front door. We'll wait and let him get in the front door. Amen. Amen. But again, we live in a time when we have absentee fathers, and mothers some of the mothers have developed an attitude that I don't need a father here. I don't need a man here. And I don't know the government has helped that problem.
Yeah, I think, some of that I think occurs out of he runs off, there's some bitterness there.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a role in it. And like I said, I know some women, I have some in my church that have done just a tremendous job raising their kids by themselves. But the thing is we can let that root of bitterness also teach something negative to our kids.
Yeah.
And so we have to be aware of that. A lot of people may not know Bruce Bowen. He used to play for the San Antonio Spurs. Bruce Bowen, his parents, one of them was an alcoholic, one of them was on drugs. They ran off and left him. So he was raised by another family, some neighborhood family took him in.
Wow.
And when he got grown and he got in the NBA, his father or somebody
check the
came
door?
looking for him. And so he made the statement. He told him, what are you here for now? He said, I don't need you now. I'm in the NBA. I'm making millions. He said, I needed you when I was 7, 8, 9. I needed you when you ran off. And he said he told his father that. He said, now, the people that I'm going to take care of are the people that took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself.
Wow.
I mean, that's a sad state of affairs, that his own dad, you show up after the guy's made it. Shaquille O'Neal said something similar. He said, the dad I know, he said, he may be my biological father, but he said, but the dad I know is the guy that married my mother and taught me how to be a man. And so, again, it is God's will for us to be there, for men to be there, for fathers to be there in the lives of these kids, because it's big stuff. Like, we should be shaping what our kids think about God. And we should be shaping that by how we are living for God in front of them.
All right. Well, I'm excited. As I was telling you, this is my father, Charles E. Shepard. He had to leave for a few moments because he still functions as a deacon at Guiding Light Assembly, and he's back. We're glad to have him here. And again, very instrumental, not just in my life, but in a lot of young men's lives. And as Curtis was telling them that he was over our house, and you kind of fathered him somewhat, and then you had the Boy Scout troop, 563, and if you would, kind of share about your childhood, because that's kind of what has made you, I think, the good father that I say that you are.
Thank you very much. I guess I could, if I would take the time to tell you what it's all, go back as far as I would like to go back, which I won't, it would take a whole lot of time. But I first have to give thanks first to the Lord of my life, who is Jesus Christ. And then I thank God for putting me in a home of a grandmother with 2 sisters that I always will call them my sisters, Lillian Watts, Joanna Callan, who we was raised up together. That's all I've ever known. And they made sure when I came up, I'm being a boy, they want to make sure that I stayed a boy. And they want to make sure that I be a boy, even though they were girls and I would want to go everywhere they went. They said, no, you're a boy, you do what boys do. And I thought, wow, I love them. And I love them for what they did and how they was instrumental in my life. And as I grew older, I used to always feel like this. Rather than to know, for Joanna and Lillian to know something about me that was bad, I'd rather be locked up. Because they had such a high standards. My grandmother raised us at such high standards. And after I got married, of course, my standard was what they had taught me. And as I married and began to raise a family, I tried to implement and try to put that same learning that I had learned, I tried to share it with my boys. And in sharing it, I got an adopted son along the way, which was Curtis, and I call him Curtis. I always will call him Curtis because he always be Curtis to me. And he grew up with me. What impressed me so much about Curtis, the first time he came over to my house with Tony and Reggie, I jumped straight on him. And I always have been this way. When he walked in the house, I said, boy, whose dad are you? He looked at me. He was a young boy. I said, what are you doing on my house? And Curtis was terrified. He didn't know what to think. I said, who asked you to come over here? But Tony and Reggie was cracking up because they know that was the way I would, but that's just the way I would portray. So Curtis got to know me real well. So, and once I got to know him, every time I looked up, Curtis was there as much as Tony and Reggie was there. So he got to be like my child. In fact, he was my child. I remember when he went to Cherry Hut to, what's that college he went to? Indiana State. He left his car with me. He says, yep, he said, I'm gonna leave my car with you. And you know, I thought, wow, this guy liked me so much, he gonna leave his, I think it was a Cordova. He left the Cordova with me. And every time I'd come home, Curtis was there. Every time I'd go in the back room with Tony and Reggie room, Curtis was there. And you know, we grew up. And I grew up with them, they grew up with me. So as time went on, I would always instill in them, or try to instill in this, always be punctual. Always be a person of your word. If you tell a person you're gonna do something, let your word be for you, because if your word don't mean nothing, you don't mean nothing. And I often felt like, if I told you I'm gonna be somewhere at a certain time, look at the clock, 1 minute before, 1 minute after, I should be surfacing in that area. And then I always told them this, let people be able to depend on you as you want them to, as you want to depend on them. It has been so much that has happened in my life that I can be thankful for. I thank God for a wife that stood beside me for 62 years, and we've been together 62 years, and like, even though things, her health is declining somewhat, but you know what? I find myself loving her just as much now as I did when I first met her. When I first met her, I thought she was the prettiest thing in Indianapolis. And sometimes I look at her laying in the bed when she sleeps, I still think she's the prettiest thing. And sometimes I tell her, I said, girl, I said, I don't know what in the world I'm gonna do with you, but I don't know what I'd do without you. But I just thank God for the things that has been instilled in me, and I instill in my boys. Even today, you all call him Pastor Shepherd, I can't get over, you know, you all call him Pastor Shepherd, I call him Tony. He always will be Tony. I thank God for him. I thank God for every time. Curtis don't come in town unless he come by our call and say, hey, Shep, how you doing? You always have a word of encouragement. And it make me think that when I took the Boy Scouts at Grace Church, I think we was the only Boy Scout troop that started out with zilch. And my motto that I put in those boys, try to put in them from the day that I took over Scoutmaster was this: you gotta be first or nothing. If you can't be first, you are nothing. So I put this in their mindset. And the first time we went to camp, we went with no equipment. We didn't win first place, but we won second place. And they said, we never seen a troop like this before. What I had practiced to do with what it instilled in me. Give it your best, always do your best, always try to be your best, and then do the best that you can. So the next time we went to the T. Sun Gunner District, which we were in, Grace Apostolic Church was known for our religious programs that we would do. Everybody else would do things different. We did them a little bit different. But the second time we went to camp, they brought a man by the name of Mr. Pate. They brought him down from the district. He said, I've never seen a troop like your troop. We won first place. He said, how did you do it? I said, because I had a group of guys that would want to listen to me. And what I didn't do, I didn't have time to, you know, I took the time with each person. I had to deal with each person according to the attitude of the knowledge that you have to them. You can't put everybody in the same category. You can't treat everybody alike. You have to treat them according to what you know about them. I had one little boy that came there one time. He would come there the first time he came, he had a switchblade knife. And he was about this tall. His name was Roman Brodus. And I said, boy, what are you doing with this knife? He said, I'm going to defend myself. I said, boy, you can't do nothing with that knife. He said, I can cut you. I said, how would you like to eat blades and spit steel out of your mouth? So I had to always let them know who was in charge, because I did have a couple of fellas that wanted to try me, but I was a young guy, about 30-something years old, fresh out of Marine Corps, and I thought that nobody could really outdo me. So I did have a couple of guys that tried me, so I immediately put them on the ground, and they realized, they said, well, you're the leader. But not so much that because I put them on the ground, but I had to instill in them, it can't be with one captain in this crew here. If you're gonna be a captain, I might as well give it up. And I said, since I've been appointed to lead you guys, this is what I gotta do. And I try to put this in these guys as they grow up. I'm proud of Curtis, I'm proud of Robin, I'm proud of, well, I knew Miss Braggs, his mother-in-law before he did. But Curtis come from a good crop. I'm proud of him, and anytime I hear that Curtis in town, I always try to make it to see him. And of course, I have to say the same thing about my son. And like I say, I never say what my sons will or won't do. I know what they will or won't do around me. I had to tell one of the good friend of mine once, she said, I know what my child would do. I know what, I said, no, you don't. You know what they do as long as you're looking at them. I said, but when you ain't looking at them, you don't know what they might do. I said, because the truth of the matter is, I don't know what I might do. I said, because look at it like this. I said, as saved as I say I am, I said, what do you think would happen if somebody slapped me dead in my mouth, unexpected? I said, if the Lord didn't come down right good, fast, and in a hurry, I would be in trouble, or somebody was in trouble that slapped me. So, believe it or not, you know, you have to be careful what you say. People will try you. A guy tried me one day. He said, you so holy and so saved. He said, what would you do if I hit you in the mouth? I said, you better hope that the Holy Ghost I say I got, you better hope it's working. Because if it ain't working, buddy, we gonna be in trouble, or we both gonna be in trouble. But the whole thing is this. Try to be the person that you say, or you are claiming to be. Be who you are. Don't try to be somebody else, because God didn't make no duplicates. He made you to be original. So be who you are. Don't try to imitate nobody else. Do the best you can be. Do as much as you can, as long as you can, and as often as you can. And that's my my encouragement to anybody. Be who you are. You can't be nobody else.
I wanna ask you a couple of questions. Now I already know this, but they don't know this. The person that you are today, and because I've never known my parents not to be together. I mean, for him to live in one house, my mother live in another house, I don't know anything about that. That never happened. I only have one father, one mother. I know a lot of people can't say that. My parents have been together. I'm 60, so they've been together over 60 years. Amen. Okay, that's unheard of nowadays. But you didn't come from a home where you knew your mother really, per se, or your father.
True.
And so your childhood, how were you raised? Who raised you? And then what was your relationship with your father and mother?
The truth of the matter, I really didn't meet my father till I was 44 years of age. The only people that I knew, the first two people I knew in my life was Lillian and Joanna. And I often say this, come what may, do what you do. Those are two people that I will always cherish, because my grandmother would leave them two in charge. Now, Joanna and I was pretty close to the same age, not a little bit different, but we used to do the Devish thing together. We always did the things that my grandmother would get on us about. Lillian was more like the mother. She would chastise us, she would tell on us or something like that, but me and Joe, we did what we did. But the thing of it is, I only knew my mother. My mother died when I was 7, she was 27. So that means that I only knew her about 3.5 to 4 years at the most. Because past 4 years, I don't know, I didn't know who I was then. But the first time I had seen my daddy, I think I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I very vaguely remembered it. And I didn't see him no more till I was 44. Well, when I was 44, I was just as old as he was. I was just as grown as he was, but not as old as he was. Mm-hmm. So I met him through my youngest son, Randy, who got on the computer and began to fish around and find out that, do you have a son by the name, they called him Charlie Shepherd. Well, I never took my daddy's name because my daddy, I never was around him. My daddy never did anything for me. I never knew him. And in fact, I can't, to this day, thank God for the years that I did meet him, and the rest of my boys got to meet him, but they knew him as well as I did, as long as I did. From 44 till, he passed away, I think I was maybe about 50, maybe 51 or 52, something like that, maybe. But no, I had to be older than that, I don't know. But anyway, I didn't know him very much, so I can't say that he had a lot to do in my life because I didn't know him. All I knew was Eliza Shepherd, Lillian and Joanna Pack Callan, Watts Pack. Those are the only people that I knew. So all the learning that I got was from those three people, pretty much.
So what so that meant your grandmother. So did you meet your grandmother's husband?
Yeah.
Was he the male in your life? Or?
Yeah, I knew him very, very little because we used to call him my daddy. His name was Charles. In fact, they named me after him. He died before my mother did, so I knew him I remember him pushing me in a wheelbarrow. That's as much, and buying us chocolate cookies, what they call chocolate snaps. I remember that. That's as much as I can remember. But back in that day, when people would die, they would bring you home and put you in the living room. And I remember seeing them covering the mirrors up, and I remember seeing them in the living room, which I was scared to walk in the living room up until I was about 21 years of age. But that's as much as I can remember about my granddaddy. He was more a force than I can say my daddy was, but I did get an opportunity to talk to my daddy before he died, and I asked him these things. What happened between you and my mother? I said, I know I'm not responsible for that. I had nothing to do with you and what my mother went through. I said, but what is it you can tell me? He said, your mother was a good person. He said, I was older than she was a young girl. And he said, I'm really sorry that I wasn't in your life. He did tell me that. And then later on, I found out that I had other brothers and sisters that I thought all of my life that I was the only child. In fact, I was the only child other than Lee and Joanna. And when I found out about my other sisters and brothers, in 1960, I found out I had a sister named Irma. She was 6 months old. In fact, she was older than, I think she's about 6 months older than you.
Yeah.
And because I think my wife was expecting when I first met her. And then later on, I did meet the rest of my family through a sister that I had in Detroit. And I found out I had 2 brothers, another sister, and another sister who was in the Army, because I remember sending for help and to get her home because she wanted to meet me. Then I got my younger brother is the same age as my younger son. So what did that tell you? Papa was a Rolling Stone. Where he laid his head was his own. Papa was a Rolling Stone. And one of the things I can say this, I always said this, irregardless of what happened in my life, I did not want my boys to come up like I came up. I wanted them to know who their daddy was, and I wanted always been in life. And I always told my wife this, if by some reason, if I had a child out of wedlock by some other woman, that child have a right to know who his daddy is. I didn't want them to grow up like I came up, not knowing who my sisters and brothers was, because it's so easy. One of my siblings went to college, met another sibling that they didn't know, and they were about to get engaged. Come to find out, they were in the same family. And you know what kind of impact it had on them? I think one of them has messed one of my mind completely up. So thank be unto God that, I only got the 3 children, the 4 adopted. But, I just thank God for the experience that I had, and I can pass it on. I mean, you can make it if you want it, you can make it. And you can't say that 60 some odd years was all easy years. But I used to tell my wife this once. She said if such and such a thing happened, she said, I'll leave you. I said, go ahead, leave. I'm going with you. So we took that attitude. So we've been together all these years. So thank be unto God.
Amen. Now the other thing that I thought was unique was that, and I know this is Father's Day, but there's something about grandparents, because number one, you have a real close relationship with your grandkids,
Right.
number one. And then number two, your grandmother raised, what, 3, 4 you guys?
She raised me, Lee, and Joanna. Mary died of an early age, but Lee and Joanna and myself, we was like 3 peas in a pod. In fact, biologically, they are 2 sisters and I'm the cousin, but nobody would know it unless I told them.
How did y'all end up together? I mean, what happened, what transpired that your grandmother ended up raising all y'all?
Well, all our mothers back in that day, and people used to be scared to say what happened when disease was on a rampage. But my mother died with tuberculosis. Joanna Lee's mother died with tuberculosis. My granddaughter died with tuberculosis. Another daughter died with tuberculosis. So tuberculosis was running rampant back in that day. Well, Lee and Joanna, and we were more or less, people ostracized us and stuff. Thought they didn't want to be around us because they figured that we were prone to have tuberculosis. But believe it or not, all 3 of us are alive. One of us 89, one 87, I'm 82, going on 83. All 3 of us are still here. And it just so happened that we were a family like this. If one of us had, the other one had. Lillian left Alabama first. She sent for Mary. Mary left Alabama. She sent for me. And then after I got here, then Joanna, her husband, was here, and then Joanna and her family, except for Jack, because Jack was born here. So she's a Hoosier. She's not an Alabamian. But we were a family that was closely knitted. And most of the people that would scorn us, most of them are dead. And we're still alive. So I don't know how the tuberculosis didn't hit neither one of us. Neither one of the four of us. My first thing, when I first got married, the first thing that I wanted to do was to have all of my children tested, make sure that they didn't have tuberculosis. So I never had, none of my children had tuberculosis. I didn't have it. If I had it, I didn't know it. And if I hadn't known it, I'm still here. But, you know, we've been blessed in that respect. And it's all because of my grandmother, the one that raised us. She did have it before she died, but that wasn't what killed her. But we knew how to deal with it then because the modern technology had developed where tuberculosis back in that day, all you could take was penicillin. If penicillin didn't kill it, you died. So back in that day, they made a home remedy that people would take, and it helped to cure tuberculosis. It slowed it down. I don't want to say it helped to cure, but it slowed it down. And they used lemon, whiskey, honey, and cod liver oil.
Don't give away the recipe now.
Well, yeah. Yeah. The reason I know that it works because I went to the drugstore one day to buy some Squibbs cod liver oil, and the pharmacist asked me, he said, "What are you getting ready to do?" I said, "Why you ask?" He said, "You're getting ready to make a home remedy." I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Because that's what they did back in the old days." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Boy, you asked more questions than the FBI." So they could identify with that. And then, incidentally, it was a preacher by the name of Reverend Gudley. They did put him in prison because he wouldn't give the patent to the pharmaceutical company. Because it was helping. He had a daughter that had tuberculosis, had eaten up on her lungs, so he gave us this medication. And what made me really start to reading books was this. I read a Reader's Digest one time, and it said, the greatest advice that I've ever had. And I read it, that article struck me, and I said, what's so important about this article? It's this one man had tuberculosis, so he went to the doctor. And the doctor, he said, "Doctor, how long have I got?" The doctor said, "I'll tell you what you do. You let the tuberculosis stay where it is, you live a normal life." This guy lived 10 years longer because he did not concentrate on what the doctor had told him. He did what the people had said. He did what the doctor had told him. Stop concentrating on the illness and concentrate on living. Because you can kill yourself by just worrying about something. Now, this is where I come up with the philosophy. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. Nothing ain't good, nothing ain't bad, nothing ain't up, nothing ain't down, nothing ain't in, nothing ain't out, nothing ain't white, nothing ain't black, nothing ain't nothing. So don't let nothing possess you. Do the best you can do, and don't let, because you get knocked down, don't let nobody tell you can't get up, and don't let nobody tell you what you used to do. I don't care how bad you've done something or whatever you've done, you can always say, I once was or used to wasn't, but now I'm a now I am isn't. I don't do what I used to do.
Amen. All right, I think we got somebody that wants to get.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great.
I'm interested in your experience in that which you're really meeting your dad at 44 years old and sharing with us if in fact there was any resentment in his absence. How did that conversation go?
Good you asked that. You know what? I would have had resentment had it not been for my mother-in-law. Beulah knew she was a sweet person. In fact, she was more, other than Lee and Joanna, Beulah was the closest thing to my real mother than anything I knew. And just before we got ready to go to Selma to meet him, I was a little resentful with my younger son. I said, why did you go dig that man up after all these years? I was bitter. But then I thought, this man have never given me a quarter in his life. He's never, I played basketball. I was in the Hawaii team. I was vice president of my senior class. I was president of my junior class, and I thought I was in the National Thespian Society. I sang in the choir, and I said, nobody was there to say you done well. And I had gone overseas, and I often tell this, in going overseas, when you get on the ship, they have a roll of toilet paper. One person on the ship have one end, and you got the other end, and as the ship go off, the paper unroll. And I stood there, and I began to see people having relatives there, a well wishes to see them go out. And I stood there and cried. And 2 days later, I said, nobody was here to say congratulations and goodbye, and out of all the things I've accomplished. But the thought came to me one day, I was on the ship, and the audible word came to me, God said I was there all the time. That helped me so much. But then getting back to what you asked me about my daddy was simply this. I was real bitter when I first met him. But then after I met him and talked to him, that bitterness left me. And I found myself about every month, and I did this without trying to let Tony, Reggie, or Barbara know about it, because when they found out about it, they set me ablaze. They set me ablaze. I would send my daddy money every other month just to help him, because, you know, I just felt like this is something I could do. I could do for him what he didn't do for me, but I never thought of it like that. And then I would hide my money orders that I would send the money to him in my blue van. So one day, Tony was in there cleaning my van out, and he saw this money order. He said, Mama, who daddy sending money down there to them people for? He said, he's sending $40, $50 down there to them. He could get that to me and Reggie. I thought, wow. So I got to thinking about, you know, what I had done, and that let me know. It let me know two things. What you do behind the door gonna get in front of the door. Somebody gonna find it, and I don't care where you go, somebody know you from somewhere. I don't care what you do, you gotta be careful what you do, be careful what you say. And a lot of things that you do, you regret, you're sorry for. I remember this, I went to Chicago, and me and a guy named Bert Hurley, you know Bert Hurley, a lot of you might know Bert Hurley, used to go to Freewood Church, and we were supposed to be saved. We were saved. Well, we saved, real saved, from the church. So we went to a place in Chicago called Jimmy Wong, where little as we know, Jimmy Wong served food, but he had drinks there too. But they had a pineapple drink, and everybody was drinking these drinks. But person, hey, Charles, let's go in there and get one. I said, man, if they catch us, they're gonna put us out of church. But just as we made up our mind to go to Jimmy Wong, we hadn't got to the door. Here come two ladies down the street saying, in the name of Jesus, we just bless God for all that he's done. And you know what? It just stifled me. It locked me. I couldn't move. The wrong that I was about to do, it locked me. And there are things that, you know, I've done wrong. I had to go to the individual and tell them the pain I've caused you and your family. It hurt me, but I found out what I had done. And I often think about David. When he went and he repented, he went before the Lord, and well, really David didn't want to repent. I don't guess he did, but Nathan had to remind David the sin that he had done, and so it let you know that you can get away, you can get by, but you don't get away.
Amen.
So it's best to just go ahead and get your things straightened out now, so you won't have to worry about it later. I hope that helps somebody. My dad and I, we ended on good terms. I went to his funeral. The only thing they asked me to do at his funeral was, they asked me, kiss your daddy. He was dead in a casket. And I thought, we didn't do no kissing when he was alive. why must we go kissing on some kissing on a corpse and he's dead? You ain't gonna feel it. And I ain't gonna be tasting this bitter stuff that they put in it.
I never knew my father growing up. I'm going to see him today, as a matter of fact, and he was looking forward to that event. But the general consensus is, and you can hear it even in the tone in this room at this session, that when there is an absent father, the reference to Shaquille O'Neal and what he said, and you hear the mms and as if it's pleasing to hear that a young man, for whatever reason, turns his back on that man is his biological father. So that which I wanted to be expressed and that which you did very well was in fact that this is a man.
Yeah,
He makes errors like everyone else.
that's right,
He is your biological father.
yeah,
And for whatever reason, he was absent in your life, that day when you did meet him, he still deserves
right,
the respect
that's right.
of being your
And
father.
I certainly did try to give it to him the best that I could. You're right, that is so right.
Yeah.
You don't hold anything against it because you holding something, you hurting yourself.
We don't expect the father to hold anything
There you
against
go,
us.
there you go.
Yeah. Now the other thing that I want before we get away from here is I think because the way you were brought up, maybe not having part of your family, the family that you did have, you all made sure you kept it close. I mean, we've had family dinners together, family cruises together, family, and it's pretty much keep your family together, and that's even transferred through you. You know, your grandkids come, and they just, they stay anywhere
That's
at your
true,
house.
that's true.
You know, I mean, they're there. They enjoy being there. They're not trying to stay somewhere else.
Right.
They're there with you, and it seems like you are glad to have them there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that is so true, because I remember the way Joanna Lee and myself, we grew up. We were living in Selma. We were so poor back in that day that me, Lillian, Joanna, and Mud all slept in the same bed. We were just that poor. Joanna and Lillian would sleep at one end, me and Mud sleep at the top end. But, and it's not that, when we stop and look at where we are now, we don't consider ourselves rich, but from where we came from, we tell each other all the time on the phone, it's not a day past that Joanna don't call me, or 2 days. It's not 2 days that I know in a week past that she don't call me, or Leah don't call me at least once a week. We always keep in touch with each other, and we deal with each other like brothers and sisters. There's no two ways about it. There are some times that I can go to Joanna's house, and me and Joe will always argue. As long as we live, we will always argue. That's a sign that we love each other. Now, Lillian, I don't argue with her as much because she always gonna have the last word. I respect her for that. Me and Joe would argue to her, and she'll say, "Well, go on home." Then I said, "Well, I'm going, but I'll be back." And I go to her house so much. I go to Joanna's house so much that she